Adults with strong social and emotional skills are an integral part of a positive school culture that supports student social emotional learning, or SEL, and success. So, where do you stand in your own SEL journey? And what can you do to take it to the next level? Welcome to It Starts With You, the final installment in Spring into Social Emotional Learning. Please check out the other presentations related to this topic, which can be found on the CLIU C&I EdTech channel. Our names are Carly Harrell and Rosemary Lamparella. We are the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit's Resiliency Team, tasked with providing training and support in topics related to trauma-informed practices. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started.
Part of our learning involves feeling safe and experiencing a combination of predictability and novelty in our learning. This presentation serves as a model for adult professional development learning using the 3 key signature practices recommended by CASEL for any meeting or professional development. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, and we'll be taking a look at their work a little later in this presentation. The 3 practices include starting with a welcoming inclusion activity that sets the tone for learning and engagement. It is important that adults are given relevant information that also allows them the opportunity to get involved in their own learning. The second practice allows for engagement. Even though this particular presentation may not allow you to turn and talk to someone, you will still be able to experience choice and interaction through the presentation itself. You may be invited to pause the video and participate in an activity to enhance your learning experience. Finally, we will end our discussion with a closing activity that allows you to reflect upon our time together and look forward to your next steps with your new knowledge. When you see the signature symbol, like the one in this top left corner of the screen, you will know it's a signature practice. For our welcoming activity, we want to recognize that most of you are probably watching this video solo and feeling pretty disconnected from anyone else who might watch this. So let's create a little sense of connection by all sharing a common experience. What we're going to do is take a deep breath in through our nose. We pay attention to our shoulders staying still and our stomachs expanding. Then we will slowly exhale out through our mouth and listen to the sound of our breath leaving our body, feeling our stomachs deflate. We are going to do this 2 times, and while I'll say breathe in and breathe out to guide you, you can absolutely do this at your own pace, going more quickly or slowly as you need to. Let's begin. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And there you have it. We all have got something in common despite not actually meeting. Welcome. This video will define adult SEL, explain how to evaluate your current SEL skills, and describe ways to further develop those skills while also supporting your well-being. Throughout the presentation, you will see and hear about links. We will provide you with the PDF of the slides at the end, and you will be able to click on any of the links once you download that file.
So, what is adult SEL? It's much like SEL for children, but with an added layer. The commonality between the two is that they both involve developing social and emotional competencies. And having well developed social and emotional competencies is one of the resiliency factors that can help us to lead healthy lives. More specifically, having well developed social emotional skills can help us adapt to changes, be more resourceful, and better come up with creative solutions to problems. It also helps us to read and apply necessary social cues, which for educators translates to being much more successful when working with colleagues and our students. The added layer in adult cell, however, is that the improvement of those skills and expertise is not only to benefit ourselves, but also so that we can effectively lead children in developing their skills. To further explain adult cell, we can break it down into three main components. The first component of adult cell is supports. In order for educators to have the time, resources, and space to practice their cell skills, district and building leadership will need to put environmental supports in place. So, as we go through this presentation, keep in mind that these ideas are for individuals who want to develop or enhance adult cell practices, but it takes a whole school community to put some things into action successfully. Modeling your cell skills is the next component, which teachers probably already do naturally. When consciously practicing adult cell, you may specifically make a point to draw students' attention to emotions you're feeling or say empathetic statements out loud. You can also tell them things that you are aware of about yourself. So, for example, you can say that since you get flustered during meetings, you try to take a long sip of water before getting started and you plan for a break about halfway through. The final part of adult cell is self care. And this is something that's often trivialized. It can seem easier said than done, unnecessary, or maybe even a little new agey. However, bolstering yourself against present and future stress is none of those things. In fact, self care is essential, scientifically backed, and flexible enough to get fit into even the busiest of days. Taking care of yourself is what will allow you to improve and maintain cell skills and be that model that you want to be for your students. At this point, you may be feeling unsure or maybe fired up and ready to go. So, either way, where do we start? Well, as a teacher, you know that all good things begin with a pre assessment. Estimating where you currently stand with your social emotional skills is a good place to start because it can lead to some quality self reflection. And not only is self reflection a social emotional skill itself, it's essential for true growth in this area. So, what are your cell strengths and areas of growth? This is where it gets interesting because evaluating your social emotional skills is both easy and complicated. It's easy in that there are lots of quick quizzes and free assessments available on the internet. And these can often give you an idea of where you're strong and where you could stand to improve. Some measure just one part of social emotional functioning, like your emotional IQ. And they provide informal, unofficial results, but again, they can give you some ideas to ponder. The quiz linked under the plane icon on this slide is one such quiz. Where it gets complicated is that some scientists say that certain components of cell, like emotional intelligence, aren't actually measurable. But other scientists say that emotional intelligence can absolutely be measured. If you want to learn more about that discussion, the link at the very bottom of the slide will take you to an explanatory article. Regardless of this conflict between scientists, it does appear that you can measure some skills under the social emotional learning umbrella. The medium and long haul assessments that are linked on the page can be used to get a pretty comprehensive impression of what social emotional skills you have that are strong and which ones are your relative weaknesses. And from there, you can pinpoint what you might decide to work on. At this time, we invite you to pause this video and type the bit.ly links under each of the assessments into a new browser window. You can check them out and get a sense of each one. If you have time now, you can even take one or two. If you do explore the CASEL links, you'll be prompted to make a free user account in order to access those assessments. Once you've had a chance to look at the links, come back here and press play to continue with the video.
discuss some ways to combine the domains of self care with your own cell practices. There are different types of cell programs available, but CASEL, as we mentioned earlier, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, is a trusted source for knowledge about high quality, evidence based social and emotional learning curricula. They research cell curricula as a resource for educators. Through extensive research, they rate cell programs in 5 core competency areas, which include self awareness, self management, responsible decision making, relationship skills, and social awareness. These areas are supported on the outside rings of the graphic you see here, in the classroom first, then in our school communities, by families and caregivers, and finally, by the community as a whole. When thinking about CEL for our students, we always emphasize that CEL is not a bonus skill or something to teach in addition to the curriculum. Likewise, for adults, CEL is not yet another thing to do. Instead, we can simultaneously work on our CEL skills while also taking care of ourselves. CEL and self-care are both ongoing processes that continue throughout our adult lives. They allow us to build our resilience to prepare for times of adversity or stress. On the next few slides, we will link self-care activities to each of the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning.
The first core competency that we'll provide ideas for is self awareness. This skill is especially important right now as we process the current pandemic and racial injustices that are at the forefront of many people's minds. The current turbulence creates complex emotions that must be identified and processed. Self awareness includes recognizing how our emotions and personal identities might influence our behavior. So, this includes reflecting upon strengths, weaknesses, and implicit biases. It's also important to understand our cultural, racial, and social identities. Finally, cultivating an appropriate level of confidence, optimism, and focus on growth helps us develop our self awareness skills. Self care activities such as taking an implicit bias test, videotaping your self teaching, journaling your emotions, trying out cognitive reframing, thinking of a mantra, or doing a mindful body scan can all help us develop our self awareness.
Self-management is the next area of social emotional skills. It encompasses emotional and behavioral regulation, stress management, and intrinsic motivation. For many people, self-management skills were even more important than usual during remote learning, working from home, or just living life during the pandemic. When we work to cope with grief or loss and strengthen our resilience, we are drawing upon our self-management skills. Some ideas for self-care that fall under self-management social emotional learning are creating a self-care plan for yourself, formulating goals and finding ways to achieve them, practicing mindfulness, using guided imagery, and finally, setting a regular sleep schedule for ourselves.
Weighing all of the various factors of a decision, ethics, safety, personal convictions, social expectations, before acting is a key part of responsible decision making. We've all employed this skill as of late when deciding where to go, who to see, and how our choices might impact the mental and physical health of ourselves and others. Part of responsible decision making is placing value in the collective well being, and this goes beyond hand washing and masking. Making decisions that help to form a more equitable society is the big global level of responsible decision making. Self care activities that can help us develop our responsible decision making skills include setting professional boundaries, like deciding when you will answer emails and when you will not, or how many responsibilities you will volunteer for at work. You could also practice regulatory breathing techniques before responding. You can seek out and surround yourself with positive people, exercise kindness towards others, and even do things like get checkups at the doctor.
A critical cell skill for everyone is the ability to establish and maintain relationships. Healthy relationships help bolster us against negative impacts of adverse experiences and connect us with others across age, culture, and race. These are the relationships that help us collaborate to find new solutions and constructively negotiate conflict. We do this by communicating, listening, and cooperating. Some ideas for self care in this area include scheduling family time, taking an active listening course, perhaps walking in nature with a friend, or joining a yoga or Tai Chi group.
The final social emotional skill for adults to cultivate is social awareness. This includes the ability to consider other people's points of view, as well as to empathize with them, learning what supports and resources a community has to offer, and understanding inequities that exist in our society, many of which have been recently made worse by COVID 19 and continue to be impacted by systemic racism. Self care activities that can help you further develop your social awareness skills could involve things like joining or following social media groups that focus on topics in which you don't feel very well versed, becoming a mentor, joining a community organization or volunteering, supporting community projects, or even joining a school committee that puts you side by side with parents, like the PTO.
If you weren't able to catch all of the self care ideas we mentioned in the core competency areas of CEL, we compiled them for you here. Feel free to pause the video and take a picture. That way, you will have those ideas at your convenience whenever you need them. As you take steps along your CEL journey, we would like you to reflect on one thing that you found fun, challenging, or eye-opening about today's presentation. Once you've got the answer to that question, pause the video and scan this QR code or type the web address below it into your browser. You'll be taken to a form where you can anonymously tell us your answer. And then you'll have access to the PDF of this video's slide deck and all of the links we've included. Thanks for joining us.